When you're thinking about buying a house, it can be really easy to confuse your deposit with your down payment, especially if you're buying a house for the first time. And although they are both substantial sums of money and must be included in your budget along with the cost of home insurance, they are in fact different and distinct payments. What's going on, everybody? My name is Fyffe and I'm your local realtor in Guelph, Ontario with Realty. And in this video, I'm going to explain the difference between your deposit and your down payment when purchasing a home. But before we get started, make sure you take a second to hit that subscribe button and like this video. All right, let's get into it. So much like the words client and customer, deposit and down payment are often used interchangeably by the general public, but they have very different meanings. The deposit comes first, so let's start there. Renters are no strangers to deposits. When you sign a lease on a new apartment, your new landlord will typically ask you for a security deposit. Often, this deposit is in the form of paying your last month's rent, even though you may not actually know when that is. You pay the deposit to show that you're serious about renting and that you're going to take care of the unit. And in most cases, you'll get that money back as long as you treat the apartment well and you meet all the conditions of your lease. Purchasing a home also requires a deposit, but it's a little different than the one you pay your landlord. When you find a house and you make an offer on it, you'll make a deposit on it as well. Like the landlord, you want to show the seller that you're a committed buyer, but unlike the deposit you make on your apartment, you're not actually going to get this one back. Instead, it's going to go towards your down payment. This deposit is required when you write an offer to purchase a property with your real estate agent, and it acts as a form of security for the seller that holds the buyer accountable for completing the sale. However, this deposit doesn't immediately go to the seller. As the successful bidder on the property, your deposit should be held in the trust account by the real estate brokerage of the seller's agent. In the rare and extreme case that you have a dispute with the seller, they may be able to hold your deposit or keep it for damages, but they can't just take your money and run. The deposit usually comes in the form of a certified check, a bank draft, or a money order. And just like your last month's rent for your apartment, it will accumulate interest provided that it's part of your agreement of purchase and sale. But unlike the deposit on your apartment, the size of it is a lot bigger. Most deposits will typically be in the range of 5%, but this is not a fixed number. The deposit, simply put, tells your seller that you're financially stable and that you're serious about buying their home. In general, the deposit amount is guided by the purchase price as well as how quickly you're going to be closing the deal. When the sale does close, this deposit will be applied against your total purchase price and becomes part of your down payment. In most cases, your deposit is only lost if the sale doesn't close, although offers that have conditions attached, such as the need for the property to pass a home inspection, can be the exception that would see a deposit returned back to the buyer. But if you make an offer and you change your mind about purchasing the house for no good reason, not only will you likely lose your deposit, but you can also face potential lawsuits for damages suffered by the seller. So that's the deposit. Now, the down payment. If you thought the deposit was a large lump of money, wait until you make the down payment. The down payment is the total amount of funds that the buyer puts toward the purchase price of the property. It's going to be at very least the same amount as the deposit if you pay 5%, but ideally you want to pay more than 5%. The down payment is paid the day the sale of the house closes, and for most first-time home buyers, it represents years of tight budgeting and saving. Like the deposit, it should be at least 5% of the purchase price, but the more you can put down, the better. But like I said, it's rare for a first-time buyer to be able to buy a house outright. They will likely need a mortgage. But your down payment will offset that mortgage cost, which is the benefit. This is why the more you can put down, the better. The more you can offset your mortgage or your total payment costs. Mortgage lenders will also want to know the source of your down payment to make sure that you personally can afford the house you're trying to buy. And while 5% is the minimum down payment to finance a home with a mortgage, the more you can pay, the better. 20% being ideal for a conventional mortgage. Otherwise, your mortgage may be pegged as high ratio, and you may have to pay mortgage insurance premiums. Now, if you just can't swing that 20%, mortgage default insurance is typically mandatory. In Canada, there are 3 mortgage providers you can choose from, but most new home buyers will be aware of the insurance offered by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, also known as CMHC. This insurance protects the lender in the case that you stop making payments and you default on your mortgage. As a home buyer, this insurance will typically cost you anywhere between 2.8% and 4% of your total mortgage amount. And although this does add to the overall amount you pay for your house, it allows people who can't save 20% down to access the real estate market a little bit sooner, and it also helps keep mortgage rates lower by reducing the overall rate of default. So the difference between a deposit and a down payment is pretty straightforward, but it is still essential to understand this difference and your obligations to everyone else involved in the purchase of your home. There are also many more real estate terms that you should understand when you're thinking about buying a house. That's why I strongly recommend working with a real estate agent as a client so they can help you navigate the murky waters and answer any questions you may have.